Okay, so like I was saying, what I mean by trade barriers are things like tariffs and quotas. I don't know if you remember what they refer to. So a tariff is like an extra tax that you put on a good that goes from one country to another. Okay, so let's imagine if Britain was trying to protect, I don't know if you remember this chain of reasoning, was trying to protect the industry of cars, okay, they would put a tariff, let's say on Japanese cars, to make sure that British people are a little bit put off by Japanese cars, okay, and are more willing to buy cars that are produced within the country, okay, within the domestic country, okay, so within Britain. And quotas are like a number of goods that you can sell into one country, okay, so you can put a limit to how many goods go from one country to another, okay. And within the European Union, within the member states of the European Union, we do not have these kind of trade barriers. Okay, so everything moves completely freely without tariffs, without quotas, and so on. Okay, now, yeah, we all know about Brexit. We all know that the UK was part of the EU and now it's left since the 31st of December. But we're going to have to pretend that this essay was written before the 31st of December, because when I made these slides, it was like way before this date here. Okay, so yeah, this is like another lesson that I did in September. So European factors. So basically, we're going to start with European factors and how they affect Tesco. So we're going to start with the expansion of the EU. Okay, so factor one, expansion of the EU. In 1958, we only had basically Belgium, Germany, France, and Italy, and Luxembourg and the Netherlands that were part of the European Economic Community, okay? And since 1958, we've had an extra 22 states joining, okay? And like I said, we then had a political union that was not just purely economic, okay? So the EU expansion, okay, so this expansion into many states that join this union allows the EU countries to be very closely linked economically and financially with each other. Okay, so all of these countries, okay, so Germany, Spain, Italy, Greece, all these European countries have to pay into the European budget because they have to fund the EU in somehow. Okay, so all the services that we have, all those like departments that oversee healthcare, the environment, and so on, they all need to be funded by someone. Okay, so every member state has to pay a sum of money that comes from taxpayers that goes into the EU budget. Okay, so depending on the income levels and the amount of tax paid and other resources that the country has. Okay, so depending also on the size, you'll be obviously contributing differently to the EU. Okay, so you have to take into account the fact that you have to pay a certain amount of money to be part of the EU. Okay, and I think we can all agree that this is one of the reasons why Britain actually decided to leave. Okay, so EU financial regulations are in place so that the money. So yeah, basically in the first paragraph, you're gonna have to give a little bit of context. So you explain what happened in the expansion of the EU. Okay, you can also look. I mean, you don't have to write the same things that I've said because I don't want it to be exactly the same as like I don't want you all to write the exact same like little factory essay. It needs to be a little bit unique, okay, from one another. So you can write a little bit about how the EU expanded, okay, from 1958. You can give a bit of context there, and then you make the point that the EU, to be part of the EU, you've got to pay into the EU budget, okay? So all countries need to pay into that, and that's the thing that you got to kind of talk about in the first paragraph, okay? Now, how do we connect that to Tesco? So we said that EU financial regulations are in place so that the money in the budget is distributed fairly along all the states in the EU, okay? This means that every single country that is part of the EU needs to contribute towards it, like I said a couple times now, okay? So this policy, how would it affect Tesco? We're pretending now that that Tesco is still kind of in the UK because I made this, like I said, these slides a while ago. So this policy would affect Tesco as they would have to work in line with the policy set by the European Council. So basically this would mean that Tesco would also be contributing to the EU in the form of corporate tax. Okay, so that's the first thing that you say in terms of linking the EU. Oh God, I'm 30 seconds left. So this could affect Tesco's daily operation as it can be expensive to be paying to support the EU. This may mean that the money they have to spend on daily operations is reduced, and the net profit, of course, for Tesco would be lower. Okay, so what you need to do here is explain what would happen to Tesco if it was still paying into the EU. Okay, so they would have less money to invest and so on.